Walker. I'm the CEO and founder of Slidepresenter, and me and Professor Dr. Christ, who's a professor at the Hochschule in Mainz and has prior experience in high-level HR functions throughout Lufthansa, Deutsche Bank, and some large, Germany would say, Mittelstand companies with only 10,000 employees. And we would, I'd love to go a bit to the meta level with you and look at our current situation a bit from above, and then maybe go down and find solutions for the problems we all might face, and break it down to some very, very specific solutions. And we would like to do that in like a triangle, looking at the theory and the science on one side, a vendor's perspective, whose mission is it to solve those problems for the customers, as well as a practitioner's view on those topics. So what I'd like to discuss with you today is the topic of intelligence management. Because if you look at where we're standing today, we could say that in general, and that sounds provocative, I know, the human factor threatens the businesses. Who would agree to this statement? Hands up. Only a few hands. Oh, more and more coming up. So once again, hands up, who agrees? I just want to get a feeling of hard to estimate. A bit more than half. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. So I hope you can hear me. Perfect. Well, so if we talk to the C-level of corporations, what we see is that there are four main determinants that, influence the current situation. It's on one hand, and please raise hands if you agree or disagree, first of all, we don't have enough qualified employees. Who agrees? Is there someone not agreeing? Raise hands, please. Awesome. Lucky you. There is a very empty job market, so we have not enough labor, and that's throughout all the positions, so we can fill all those positions. Agree or disagree? I always try to enhance my knowledge. Agree first. Disagree? Okay. Awesome. We need to talk. Also, what we see is, to the broad of C-level context we talk to, there is one really, really decisive item that stands out. It's that they all see the engagement, the employee engagement is really decreasing. Agree or disagree? Agree? Awesome. Disagree? Good. Thank you. Also, what they see is that the retention in terms of how long people stay in those companies is going down dramatically. And agree? Agree? It's always different, so I'm really curious to learn too, if I may. Who disagrees? Awesome. I try to remember those who raised hands. Well, so for the majority of the companies we talk to, and also what science shows us, that's the case. That's the situation. And it's a really hard and tough situation in terms of that we don't see this trend changing, or the conclusion to this is that in the future we need to accomplish much, much more with much, much fewer people. And this demographic topic, if you look at the baby boomers and the current situation in the German job market, for example, till 2036, 30% of the workforce in general will just disappear from the job market. And that's insane. It's 30% of all. And that's, kind of dramatic if you look at it, if we see how scarce this resource is today already. And so what does it, on the same hand, we can't see that the shortage or the demand for employees will shrink somehow. What does it mean? Let's say this gap will remain. There is no chance that this will change. Looking at the engagement problem, we could say that we often hear of head monopolies that blackmail the employers and stuff like that. That employees today are really powerful, and that leads to sometimes behavior that's not really for the good of the companies and stuff like that. I mean, those are exceptions for sure, but companies see them increasing. Also, a much stronger lack of loyalty than it was ever before. And also, fluctuation is a big topic. So people leave earlier. So once, I'm not sure if the colleague from Osram who held this presentation this morning is here, but he said, okay, they train their people for 2 years and then they are ready. What we see and what the HROs and CEOs are telling us is that once they've done this, the people are leaving, which is not ideal. It costs a lot of money and doesn't really help us with productivity. So that's the situation the majority of those people we talk to is facing. On the other hand, and that's the problem here, there are still heavy requirements and we still have a lot of challenges. So still we need to increase our revenues, we need to keep our service level up, and we need to prevent downtimes if people are not there. We need to reach sales goals, be innovative, and remain competitive in much faster changing markets. That is kind of an issue. So if you would look at that and see, okay, some companies are still winning, right? Like it's not that everyone is there and stuck and saying, okay, what can I do? And the main thing winners would do differently compared to the losers that also exist, and we see a lot of companies leaving the markets also faster than ever before, is that, or in other words, the question would be, how can you be part of the solution instead of part of the problem? There's one major thing, and if I look at what I heard today, and like at least in the morning, that's a topic we all should think about. And if you're on the meta level, I think it's important to accept the reality. And this is what the winners do first of all. They accept reality. What does it mean? It means they don't say, we do the same as we did all the time and do it more intense, faster, whatever, because it doesn't lead nowhere. And we all know Einstein's definition of doing the same and expecting another result is not the smartest thing to do. So I would encourage you to think about what we're doing and if there's not a totally different way to approach those problems. They don't run away. They don't put their hand into the sand and say, okay, hey, don't know what to do. The key thing is they apply a paradigm shift. They approach this topic from a totally different perspective. And they accept that we're now living in an intelligence economy. Like if you look at history, you know all of this, like you all know this, like we had this industrial economy and now we still think we're in a knowledge economy, right? But it's not about the knowledge. Like knowledge is something, it's available, at least the general knowledge is available, but there's also knowledge in the heads of the people. But if they leave us, it's gone. And that's what, if you look at the past, companies were thinking, okay, cool, I've got domain expertise, we have all this knowledge about those topics. But on the other hand, now they realize, okay, cool, if people leave, this knowledge leaves with them. And that's kind of a problem. And it's getting bigger and bigger. When knowledge is available, but the specific knowledge inside the company is maybe not available, or in other words, how to apply knowledge in this very, very smart way is not existent, the answer is intelligence management. And that's beyond knowledge, learning, and all the stuff. So it's more kind of, okay, in the past it was what does my company know? And now it's kind of, okay, how can we apply knowledge which exists in a way that either people or artificial intelligence can use it to create more productivity? If we look at the winners, there are kind of some pillars of what they're doing to achieve all of that and to remain competitive, to increase sales, and just to win the battle. One thing is they decouple knowledge and people. In the past, people was knowledge, right? And knowledge was people. But that's a kind of a problem, because once the knowledge is only in the heads and the heads are fluctuating, there's not too much remaining. The way out of this is like that they permanently capture, store, and evaluate knowledge. They identify their knowledge owners and extract the knowledge from them. They make sure that if you all know the situation. There are roles. Someone leaves. There is no successor. So the successor might be there 1 month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, and that's causing more and more problems on a broader scale. As well as we have all this heavy e-learnings and stuff like that, which doesn't always help to apply knowledge in the moment of need. So you might experience that on your own. You have a problem, you don't know what to do. Yeah, I mean, in 2 weeks you're going to have a webinar or a conference or a meeting or something, but you might need the knowledge now, otherwise you can't fix the problem, right? So this is something they fix. They go away from this very heavy, standardized ways of transmitting knowledge towards a very, very pragmatic way. A way that can be used by anyone and is relevant, and they make sure it's relevant, they make sure it's applicable. The second pillar is they accept those timely gaps. So we see that there is a huge, huge amount of timely gaps in terms of, it happens on projects as well. So on one hand, you have someone leaving a project or the company and you don't have a successor right away. And this is something that needs to be bridged. So it's very important that you extract knowledge from the head of the person who leaves and make sure the person who comes in has this knowledge. Not written down things, let's say like books no one would ever read, and which is not applicable. It must be fast, it must be on point, and it's very important that people can understand immediately how to use this. Pillar number 3 is they prevent head monopolies. And that's a very important thing. I don't know how deep you're involved in those topics, but if you talk to C-level, like it's a really big issue. So what we see is that there is a huge amount of people who own knowledge, and they're not always the high performers. And but they have very, very specific knowledge, and companies depend on them. They can't do anything. They're blocking productivity completely. And that's a big issue. So it's very important to continuously identify knowledge owners and make sure to get independent of them. And that works only with standardized processes that make sure that you permanently capture their knowledge and make sure it's available for others too. And that means companies start owning the knowledge and not leaving it to the employees only. I know that sounds pretty unromantic, but if you look at how the future would look like, we have to face those realities, even if they don't sound too nice and romantic. Another pillar that's key and would be interesting, who of you is already implementing AI into standard processes? Can you raise the hands a bit higher? Because from here it's very hard to see your heads. Okay, thank you very much, that's amazing. Who is not using AI for standard processes? Just to see the... Okay, wow, that's amazing. So you're all pretty advanced, and I appreciate that. So once you do this, you might face the situation that there is a lot of knowledge inside documents and stuff like that that can be captured, and Microsoft Copilot and other solutions might help you to, let's say, harness this and make it usable. But there is a lot of knowledge which is just inside the heads of your people, and once they leave, it's gone. And like what the goal must be for the future is that you make sure that the applicable knowledge is available either for a successor, a human successor, or, and this could be on a project inside a company for like someone leaves, doesn't matter, or just shifting roles, as well as for artificial intelligence. Like we need the knowledge in a way or in a format that artificial intelligence can use it and perform the task that the person did before, because we will not have all the people anymore in the future. It's just not possible because they don't exist. So that's something they create a level of, how to say, freedom where they can decide that on their own. Another thing is if you look at the whole thing or the whole topic around employee enablement and qualification. The way how we did in the past was, okay, we did e-learning programs, we thought about, hey, Michael, you missed that piece of knowledge, we created training and we gotta make sure you have that. That's not only very, very slow, it's also very expensive and it's very, very formal. And all those things don't work in the future, like it must be fast. It's often not really applicable, I have to say. So we need to change that completely. Like it must be really fast, it must be possible that it's done by everyone, and it must be automated in a way that as well as the extraction, as well as transfer of knowledge is something that happens all day, every day in the moment of need. The other topic about that is like if you have knowledge, like there are some knowledge owners in the company. Yeah, well, they need to be relieved as well because they often don't have time because it's usually not their core job to transmit knowledge or to transfer knowledge, right? Like, I mean, they have it, but it's not that they can sit there and do this all day, every day. So we need to relieve them and make sure that they can do that without any additional effort, ideally. The last piece, and it goes back to how we need to change, if we talk about learning and the knowledge transfer in general. We often have the knowledge, but no one really understands it and does not understand how to apply it, right? I think AI is a very good example. You all might know this. I don't know how many of you use ChatGPT inside the company, and it can take a lot of tasks from you and make life much, much, much more easy. But you will face that there are a lot of people who don't really know how to use that and can't take the maximum out of it because they don't know how, right? So it's very important, and it's not that the knowledge for this is not available, right? So it must be really specific, snackable, and yeah, just a way that they can just consume it and implement it right away. So the amount and the form of content is decisive. So that's the theory so far. We're going to look into practice in a second. Main important lesson here is, or message here is, that managing corporate intelligence versus knowledge is the one thing that will increase your productivity and make sure you stay competitive and will be able to create innovation in the future. With this, I would like to hand over to Michael, who will tell us a bit about the practice and the theory in one.
Thanks.
And don't hesitate to ask him for numbers.
I think
studies.
What Sebastian presented is in fact nothing new. You all know about these things, but these things are knocking at the company's gate. And there is a huge thing which is called, yes, shift happens. And the next question is, yeah, but we are different. We are not Google. And that is what I often hear. So yes, I know about these things, I know about that, but we are not Google. But also traditional organizations which are clustered in a more traditional way. Is it better now? In a cluster in a more traditional way, so traditional organizations by function, by object, be it matrix, they often argue that they are not transformed in an agile or fluid way. So often the pattern is, the idea is, let's shift the culture, let's shift the organizations from the left to the right, and then we are ready for that. That's not right. That's absolutely not right. We will always have corporate learning as a top-down approach, and we will always have corporate learning as a bottom-up approach. And there will be hygiene training, there will be safety training, there will be money laundry training, which has to be top-down, compulsory things owned by own. But both things happen at the same time, and there's no need to shift from the left to the right. And anyway, each organization is an enterprise of two speeds. So you have people in your organization which are already organized like that. And you have other people in your organization who are sitting in, let's say, more traditional organizational patterns and are waiting for the top-down approaches. So these two different mindsets are there. And I don't want to argue in generation concepts, but they are there. So a lot of people want to work like that on the right side, and even, or in spite of the fact that they are sitting in traditional organized companies, they use this agile and fluid patterns. So use these existing mindsets, they are there, and you can take advantage of them. When you look into why and how you can start right now, you have to see, and that is probably not a challenge, that the things which were separated in the past, communication, information, and learning, are now melting. So some of the content is in the intranet, some of the content is in workshops, some of the content is shared in the way we do it, some of the content is in newsletters. So everything is separated, everything is there, but it's in different buckets, it's in different baskets. So when we, and that is something which we will see at the end, when we want to continue with these type of, let's say, AI-ready and transformation-ready approaches, we have to find a unified approach when we do that. We also learned that things are changing. Loyalty, people move, and what we also see in the HR world, that the HR patterns, the HR systems are out-fashioned. Let's take the intellectual property protection idea. So the idea of traditional IPP is that companies react with brain loss danger in the way that they have longer layoff periods, they have parts in the contracts which forbid the employee to share the knowledge with external/competitors. There are non-compete clauses, these type of things. These are instruments based on the idea that you can force people not to share their knowledge, that you can force people to stay, that you can bind people. And that is not working any longer. So you have to accept that these old traditional ways of, let's say, protecting your knowledge are probably not going to work. What can you do? Yes, you have to identify the mission-critical knowledge, and you have to identify those people who own it. And that often is done in typical potential performance metrics discussions. So who is doing what, who is a knowledge carrier, who is a key person. And then you often combine that with the information, is he or she under the danger to leave? That is also the old traditional way. In fact, you have to understand who owns the knowledge. And then it's not enough to start with succession management when the person is in danger. So when you have the fear that this person is going to leave, you have to start right from scratch. And that means that you have to follow the employee across his or her life cycle and grasp his or her knowledge. When we take a step back, we all saw that, that things are changing. We saw that loyalty is no longer the same in comparison to 10 years ago. We all see that retention is a challenge. We are all fighting for retention, but everybody of us is fighting for retention. We all have to see that the labor markets are empty, active sourcing is taking place. So people hunt other people from other companies in a dimension which was not existing before. And that happens at the same time when the baby boomers are about to leave the stage. So approximately 25 to 35% of mature companies are going to leave this organization in the next 10 years. What does this mean? We all have to fight for scarce resources on the external labor market, and that will not be the chance for the future. So what does it mean? When you look into transformation and what is going to happen, and we see, for example, the baby boomers leaving, and there's a good message and there's a bad message behind that. So when we need to grasp their knowledge and to share that with others, we often use all traditional patterns to do that. You probably have heard about all these concepts of intergenerative knowledge transfer. But these old concepts were based on the idea that people eat, meet, and greet, that they shake hands, that they were sitting next to each other and exchange knowledge. And that is no longer working. These instruments are based on the idea that the surroundings are stable, that they are predictable, and they don't work in modern times. In other words, when you see the generation boomers leaving the stage, there's bad news and there's good news. What's the good news behind that? They go and they take with them experience. And that is a big chance. Sometimes this experience is harmful. So you as HRers have to decide what part of the knowledge is a good knowledge, what part of the knowledge is valuable knowledge, what part of the experience is good knowledge, and what part is bad knowledge, bad experience. Patterns which prevented you, for example, to be change ready, willingness to transform, these things. So the first thing you have to decide is which part of that knowledge and that experience you want to keep and which part of the knowledge you want to delete. A big, big challenge. The next thing is when you have decided this is the good part of the knowledge, this is what we want to keep, is that best practice? Is that state of the art? So the next thing which is knocking on the door is how can you blend that existing knowledge with state-of-the-art best practice external knowledge? And that is about the use of AI in the organization. And that is a totally different approach. So when you look into generation or knowledge transfer or experience transfer across generations or from people who are leaving and people who are coming, the overall idea is that you have to use tools doing that which prepares you for a solution which might and must help you, and that is AI. So deciding which is good or bad knowledge, or deciding which is, so to say, knowledge which can be enriched or blended with external knowledge is nothing you can do anymore. There is help needed, and that help is probably AI. So the overall idea is that you have to, let's say, grasp that knowledge, decide about the good knowledge, enrich it with the external best practice knowledge in a way which is AI ready. And that leads us again to the first step. So when you have a digital tool in place which helps you to grasp knowledge, which helps you to plant information, learning, knowledge exchange, and this is stored in a way that this can be the feeder for a future company-specific AI solution, you are AI ready. And that is my message. The message is no longer to, let's say, react when people are leaving. The message is follow them across the whole life cycle and identify and store the knowledge in a way which can feed AI solutions within your organization. Otherwise, when AI is implemented and you as HR practitioners are sitting there and now you suddenly have to feed the system and you have no idea where the knowledge should come from, you are too late. And AI, you raised your hands, is there. It will be even stronger implemented in the organization, even from outside HR, from other functions. And in other words, you have to be AI ready or AI prepared in a way that your knowledge is grasped and stored in a way which helps learning and development moving forward, but is also available to store artificial intelligence systems. Handing over to Sebastian.
We jumped one too far. So, yeah, how can Slidepresenter help with that? You might read those statements from customers like KfW. Who knows KfW? The German ones, German companies. Okay, not too many of them. They just created, like actually it was less than a year, 10 times more content than the 10 years before. So they extracted a lot of knowledge and made it available. Looking at Kercher, it's also really used completely broadly, like this whole process that I'm going to describe in a second, is used throughout the organization. So what they make sure is that those things we just described are happening on a permanent basis. Endurance example, yeah, they needed something where they can do this in a very, very lean way, and they achieved that too. So looking at how specifically Slidepresenter can help for those topics is that it's a kind of loop. So we start, like it's a continuous loop. It's the identification of knowledge based also on triggers. It's like Chris just told, we can connect to HR systems and really get all the information out to identify where's the knowledge, when is the knowledge generated, and make sure that it's captured all the way. We can also evaluate the urgency of knowledge and stuff like that. So it's really like the way to go to make sure that you won't lose it. The second step is that we extract the knowledge. That happens AI supported, so it makes it really easy. So it's fun for the people instead of pain. It happens completely integrated into work processes without the requirement of deep integrations or so. It's mostly automated, and the way how we interact with those people is also automated. It can be done by everyone, so there is no limitation. It doesn't require any technical skill or so. It's just like, it just works. No matter if blue collar, white collar, CEO or intern, it just works. It automatically checks for quality and relevance, which means you can cut out the BS out of the content. And the third step that happens is that all the people are enabled, also on the fly, all the time. And there is also a feedback loop, so if people would require knowledge that wasn't included and identified in the process, they can quickly request it and get quick answers on it. And so you can, and that's important, you can use it to enable new hires, successors, you can upskill or just reskill people with it. But that's talking about humans. But it's also possible to prepare and to be, we call it AI ready, to prepare that this knowledge is transferred to artificial intelligence. And that's one of the key pillars. If you look at the future and if you look at the role of HR, it might happen that we're not talking only about human resources. It might be the case that we also talk about other forms of intelligence, where it might be smart for HR people to focus on a bit, because, yeah, the question is who will overtake what, and how will you be prepared for that? But HR can have a strong role, and I can just encourage. And it's funny that some of our customers really got, and that happens really seldomly. They went from being HR directors to chief digital officers. And that's so insane because it usually would never happen. But as they implemented the first digitization projects with a direct impact after 3 months, that was measurable, that's how they got the lift. And that happens not seldomly, it's surprisingly often. And the reason for that is that they prepare their companies to be future ready, to be AI ready, but also ready for all the problems that we described at the beginning. Yeah, keep it short. It's a holistic, central, and integrated solution, as you can imagine, and yeah, plenty of large corporations are using it. We have a roundtable somewhere here to discuss those topics a bit deeper, so I would like to invite you to join our discussions, and I would love to hear your stories and your thoughts about that, even if they're critical. So if I feel something, like I really want to learn, that's my main aim, because it's really our mission to lift all the HR people up and bring them into a future where they have even more impact than they have now, and yeah, to help those companies to achieve this AI readiness status and yeah, be on the winner side of it. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for the presentation, and you really made me curious. I want to see a use case, how it really works. I mean, we have to go to maybe to the discussion table, if you can show there.
Story. I asked a colleague and we should talk about it.
That's very good, because I mean, it really sounds awesome.
It is.
I'm just questioning, how does it work in real life? So I'm really looking forward, and yeah, thank you for your
You don't need to believe me, we can make some context, it's fine.
Yes,
because
sure.
I understand it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we hear that often.
Very good.
Yeah.
Almost too nice to be true, but we're gonna have a look at it, right? Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I ask one last question? May I ask one last question, or will I press the schedule?
Yeah, yes, sure.
Okay. I'm just curious, who thinks that would solve some problems for you, and who doesn't? Like, first, who thinks? Okay. Pardon? Yeah, like what we just described would be something that would solve your problem somehow. Okay, one person? Two? Just for out of curiosity? A half one? Okay. Who thinks it's absolutely not solving our problems? Also no one. Be honest, it's fine. Okay. Okay.
I just assume that we are too small to be relevant.
How big are you? 15 people? You might be 50. Okay, yeah, but that actually might be too small for, yeah. Last question. How big are your companies? Maybe we do like under 500, 500 to 1,000 and bigger. Interesting. Thank you very much for being such an engaged audience, and hopefully see you at the table. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.